Hey everybody, welcome to Soul Food Priest podcast/broadcast with Father Ben. It's good to have you. I'm here with Kiera Roddy and Sylvia Vega. Question, this is burning in my soul. It is seared into my soul.
Okay, go.
Yeah, so, and I should have asked you guys this before now. What was the greatest meal that you have ever had and why?
Ooh. Oh. You could.
Go.
Okay.
Yay, you got first. Okay.
Greatest meal. December 23rd, 2006, South Beach, Miami, Florida. My honeymoon. Everything was kind of, because of Christmas, not everything was open. So we went and had a lobster dinner with filet mignon, and it did not break bank. And I thought, it's not going to be good. But it was delicious.
Good. Okay. Why was it? What do you remember the most about the meal?
Because I thought, okay, the price is not pricey, so that meat's not going to be tender, or that lobster's going to be small. Okay. So I remember that it was generous, and that the meat, as soon as I cut it in, it was exactly medium rare, how I like it.
Okay.
Yes. So it was delicious.
So that's impressive. You remember things about your wedding.
Yes.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that. How about you, Kiera Roddy? The greatest meal you ever had?
There's two, but the one that I think I'm going to go with, because it totally converted me into a foodie. Ooh. Like, beforehand, I didn't mind going to chain food restaurants. I just didn't mind it. Then, after this, I was like, no. And that was probably going to New Orleans with my husband. We had 3 kids at the time. And we went to a youth conference, but he was like, one of these nights we're going to splurge. So he had read about this restaurant called August in New Orleans, Chef John Besh.
Oh, yeah.
We walked in.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I could not read the menu at all. Had no clue what I was about to eat. And he said, do you want to turn around and walk away? And I was like, kinda, but, be not afraid. Came to mind. Yes, there you go. It came to mind. So I walked in, and wow, that was a life-changing experience.
So what was it?
I had never had duck before. The duck was, wow. This was, God's love made edible. Like, my husband was literally talking to me.
Like that right now.
And I was away. It was like a beatific vision.
Yeah.
I'm in this beatific vision.
You feel your soul leave your body.
Yes, and he's like, hello, are you there?
Yeah.
And then butter. Okay, I have to admit, butter has not really been like my jam or anything.
No one's perfect. It's okay.
Oh. But when you get butter that had been made that morning with bread that had been made that morning.
No, it does change you.
I looked, it was a really nice restaurant.
There.
It was a nice restaurant, and they had a little canister, and the guy was like about to take the butter, and I was like, don't take the butter. I was like, are you going to throw that away? He was like, yeah. And I was like, no. If it was not a fine dining restaurant, I would have just licked it all up.
What is yours?
So I converted.
Well, it is really funny because I love, this week I've eaten at the homes of 5 different families, and I've asked them this question. And it's really fascinating to hear what people say when you ask them, what is the best meal that you've ever had and why?
Yeah.
And people remember what they ate, but they will often say, because of the people, like my husband, it's the community involvement. For me, of course, granted, I'm celibate. I was alone. Okay? I was alone. So I was in cooking school in Paris, and this is what the meal consisted of. I was so broke, and we were in cooking all day, but you don't eat it because you're cooking. Yeah. So I get home and I'm starving, and I went and bought a baguette, freshly made, and a perfectly vine-ripe tomato. Oh. Okay. And I made a sandwich out of nothing more than tomato, sea salt, and a fresh baguette. Yeah. Nothing more. That's
hit the spot.
Not even basil.
It was the greatest meal I've ever had. It was perfect because it was perfectly prepared baguette with a vine-ripe tomato, untreated. Yeah. Right. And it was amazing. But it's really interesting because people remember that Jesus, when he was going to people's homes, he would always have community. The word you guys probably know this, but the word restaurant, and the French word for restaurant, literally means to restore. Oh, so restoration, and so people not only with like
it's because of the Spanish word, like to rest. So I was like restaurant, restaurant, to rest. So I knew a little.
Yeah, it's kind of cool from the Latin. Yeah, from the Latin.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's and the understanding was people would go to a restaurant, and they would not only feed themselves, but they would have like communal restoration as well. And that's an important point people forget about. You know, the most expensive restaurant in the world is called Sublimotion. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So it's a restaurant in Spain. I'm not exaggerating. The average ticket cost, it's prefix, only 12 customers per night. And it's $3,000 per person, 20 courses.
20 courses.
20 courses. That does not include wine or tip. Okay? And so what they do is the whole sensory experience. So all the walls.
You know what? I think I have heard about that.
Yeah. All the walls are like screens, and they bring in smells, music. And there's a couple of the meals you put on those.
And it's on your
glasses.
table.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, yeah.
What are those? Like AI glasses.
Yeah.
And so there's a guy named Heston Blumenthal, and who has this restaurant in England, a couple of them. And at the Fat Duck, one of the things that he does is he has one he tries to involve all the senses. So you actually put in pods in your ears, so it sounds like the ocean, and they like spray mist into your face so that it feels like the ocean when you're eating. So it's a full sensory experience. Now, contrast that with, you ever heard of a restaurant called Noma, Noma?
No.
Okay, so Noma was voted the world's best restaurant for 5 years. It's in Copenhagen. And what Noma is known for is it's Nordic food. It's in Copenhagen, okay? But they have foods that you would never, ever eat, most people. But they create it largely based around nature. So they actually have pine cone salad. You can eat reindeer brain tartare. They actually have a black garlic beetle. Okay, so these are all things from. So, would you guys eat a black garlic beetle?
If I to survive.
Yeah.
Not as a delicacy.
Well, I do have to say I have had some insects, because they're very in Mexico. They're done a certain way.
Yeah.
I cannot do like the people that just takes it from the tree, or like open the tree and like eat it. Like I couldn't do that.
Like a gusano.
But no. It's like if it's not too gooey on the inside, I could probably try the beetle if it's been like fried or something where it's not as gooey.
Yeah, the crunch.
I would go for like a crunchy beetle.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I would like it. But I think I would go for it.
Black garlic
the brains,
beetle.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean
that would be
if
tough.
It was the end of the world, but
that would be tough. I mean, I think I would much rather eat it Noma than Sublimotion, because I'm not into. I just want a meal. I'm like, I don't want somebody to put something in front of me, and I'm like, how in the heck am I supposed to eat this? Like, how do I eat this?
Yeah.
And that's been my complaint with some of the restaurants, like in California. They'll give you like 3 plates and this one little thing in there like this, and I'm like, okay, how am I supposed to eat? This is not. When I sit down to eat, I want something, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
This is what I want to eat. Like
You're
tacos.
my kind of person, Father Ben.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Amen. So, to that point, that leads me to a very important point. So we are communal. Yeah.
You're bringing this together.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's give it to the Holy Spirit. So we are communal by nature. So to that point, believe it or not, God made sexuality, it's an obvious point, in terms of communal. right? And so that, or a communio personarum, as John Paul II would say, that we are a community of persons that leads to a communion of persons, right? And so, and this is how, in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, from, it's about 2330 to 2360-ish in the Catechism, it talks about how we are communal by nature, that we need other people. And we've talked about this on podcasts before, is that even 300 years before Jesus was ever born, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, they said that man is a communal creature. We cannot survive in a healthy way alone. We need other people. And so when we talk about our sexuality is ordered, the word the church uses is ordered towards the conjugal union of man and woman in marriage for the two offsprings, as Humana Vitae talks about, of results, the possibility of offspring, and especially expression of love, right? Even if that does not lead to biological offspring. So it often comes up, and Kira and I were talking about this in some of our classes, people ask, well, what then, Father, is the difference between, say, celibacy and chastity? And with the understanding that every human being is called to chastity, but we are, some of us are called to celibacy, right? So in Matthew's gospel, for instance, Jesus is talking, and he says, hey, some people are eunuchs because they were made eunuchs. Some people are eunuch being they can't have sexual activity. Some people become eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven, because in heaven there will be no sexual activity. That is an activity for this world. So they voluntarily make themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom. In other words, we are pointing to where we will one day be. So it's, and you probably get this a lot too, Kira, right? Like these questions.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Especially with regards to like, what is chastity? Is the ultimate question, because I think, growing up, you heard like basically like chastity is the same thing as abstinence. You can't engage in that, and that in that denial, then doesn't the church think that sex is bad, that the sexual activity is bad, because if it's stay away, all of that kind of stuff. So I think from so many years of at least a couple of generations in which which this whole teaching has not been really conveyed to the people have thought that the church, that it's bad.
Yeah, it's dirty, it's horrible.
Right, when I have to, and thank God for St. John Paul II, it was reminding us, no, it is the most sacred act. It is a sacred act. It's so good and so sacred that the church is trying to protect it. So so I guess, can you clarify that? A lot of people say, like, what is chastity? How would you define that?
Yeah, I mean, and I have to remind myself, because they always say in Spanish, Padre Ben tiene una boca al mismo tamaño de Texas. Like, I've got a mouth the size of Texas. Okay, so I have to bullet points, Father.
That?
Oh yeah, with no remorse. Okay.
But the thing is, your knowledge is very deep, Father. So it's a compliment. It's a compliment to your wisdom. Please share it in a brief resume. Short.
Well, then why are they sitting out there going?
Hey, it's apropos that you have a podcast.
Maybe. How much time do I have? Okay. So, so the word that the Catechism uses is integration. Okay, so when we talk about chastity, it says that a chaste person would be when they integrate their sexuality within their personhood, right? And that's for celibates, that's for single people, married people, obviously. Well, okay, that sounds nice. Like, what does that mean? Okay, what does it mean to have an integrated sexuality? All right, i.e. healthy spiritually, somatic sexuality as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so, of course, St. Augustine, many, many years, 6th century, writes a lot about this, he understood sexuality or marriage as a cure for concupiscence. In other words, that's a big phrase. Basically what that meant was, he talks about this. He says that on the goods of marriage, he said that if you can't be chaste, get married, basically. Mm-hmm. So, and then he expanded on that, and St. Paul, of course, talks about this. And so John Paul said, look, that is not expanded enough, okay? Right. Marriage obviously is much more than that. Yeah. So then in his Theology of the Body, Humanae Vitae, even Pope Benedict, we talked a lot about that. So going back to integration, what does that mean? Well, number one, there's a lot of irony when we talk about sex in our culture. Why? Because everyone on all sides of the political spectrum would agree that we have a culture that's obsessed with sex. Yeah. Why is that ironic? Because no one knows how to talk about something they're obsessed with.
Exactly.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's just taboo. You don't talk about it. But then everybody is out there.
No, they don't. And that includes clergy. I mean, and I love my brother priests, and I do not in any way put myself on a pedestal, but I would say they don't. Most priests, I'm being general, most priests have no idea how to talk about this, so they don't. Okay, and that's a problem because our faith is very rich, and that's a problem because people need to hear that rich faith. Many have wounds, and if they don't hear about it, they may have more wounds. Okay, from a priest perspective, they can either present it as all negative, don't, soapbox, finger waggy, so they learn it in the negative, or and I've heard this before from my brother priests, dude, I ain't going to talk about that, because you know what, I got a 9-year-old altar server right here, and if I mention that, then his mom is going to blast me after Mass. So, and I get that, but the thing is, from my perspective, I'm like, well, you know what, man, I'm telling you, the average age of the first porn exposure is 10.
Right.
Okay, that's average.
Yeah.
Okay, so odds are, if he has not yet seen it, he's gonna see it here pretty quick.
Yeah.
So even if somebody has their feathers ruffled, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
And if you think about it, Father, I think that parents have trouble beginning that conversation with their children because they know they need to have that conversation, but they don't know how or when to have the conversation. So if we go to a Sunday Mass and our priest is talking about it and he's respectfully getting to the subject, and it's like maybe your children will come to you and say, hey, what was he talking about? And it's an awesome way to bring it together as a family and talk about it.
That's great.
Bringing God into the conversation. So if anything, priests, please do talk, because kids need to hear it. And parents need to be, I guess, pushed a little, if anything, to begin to have those conversations with their children.
That's a great
teenagers.
point.
And to your point of integrity, or integration, I should say, married couples are called to chastity, not just single people are called to chastity. So it is one of those things where it's, it is that idea of love ordered rightly. So if I'm integrated, then my words and my actions should match up. And if they're not, then there's disintegration, which means there's something off, and there's going to be something off in the marriage, So chastity, we still have to, even married couples still have to abide by that so that we can be good witnesses of true love, integrated love, and not of what St. John Paul II talked about, utilitarianism, the using of other people, including your spouse, and so I think once people start to learn that and start to understand that, then I think parents might be more willing to breach that conversation with their children when we realize how sacred it is and how beautiful love can be, and we're practicing it, then it's, I think, easier to convey to our kids in a good, positive, healthy manner what it is. So,
that is so true. There's a phrase that they will sometimes use when priests are going through formation and they talk about a healthy sexuality for clergy, and the phrase is affective maturity. Affective maturity. So if a man has a healthy integrated sexuality and celibacy, then he will have, this should lead to what they call pastoral charity and affective maturity. What does that mean? It means that I can relate better to people. Whereas when one is in the cycle of lust, shame, lust, shame, it's a intrinsically narcissistic paradigm and trajectory, right? And so whereas affective maturity instinctually goes out, when we see this in marriage, no question their communication is going to improve. There's no question. And not only that, as John Paul points out in Love and Responsibility, within the marital act itself, it's not just about me and my needs, which is another form of listening, right? Because otherwise it becomes intrinsically narcissistic. You know, chefs will often say, there's an expression that says, the first taste is with the eyes. So when you put a dish down, it should be physically, like, beautifully appealing, right? And so the first taste is with the eyes. So we're already deciphering what we got here, right? And water goes in the mouth, whatever. So when we see someone who's attractive, there's nothing that's totally different than lusting after them. Right. The problem is when somebody has a habit of lust, instinctually they go after that. So it's a beautiful meal. That's a beautiful woman. That's a handsome man. Right? Those are, we notice beauty. It's a beautiful sunset. Totally different. Right? And so I think that's a good point you bring up.
So now the big question is, if that is so sacred, then why are priests celibate? Like, why celibacy? If sexuality and the sexual act is so sacred, then why do priests take a vow of celibacy?
Yeah, and truly, do you want to answer that, Sylvia?
Yes, and my answer was ask Father Ben.
I mean, there is so much that one could say. I'd say in brief, what we would say is that we're now living now how we will all be in heaven, because everybody will be celibate and virginal in that state, as Jesus himself notes in Matthew's Gospel. On the other hand, I would say for myself, and I dated before I went into seminary and stuff, but I've always known my entire life. I mean, I'm 51 years old. When I look back on my life, I have always known that I would be celibate. I have not always known that I would be a priest.
That's interesting.
And so I kind of had rumblings to some extent, but I always knew in the core of my being that that I was called to celibacy when I look back. And I didn't know, what certainly wasn't always clear, but I understood that. And people always talk about what you're giving up. They never talk about what you're getting. Like
that's beautiful.
It really is a wonderful, wonderful life. I mean, it's wonderful. And so there is a sacrificial element. On the other hand, we receive much more than we give up.
Controversial point there. Is that a key element of why brother priests might leave the priesthood because that wasn't for them? Is that a big point, or is that not a big?
Well, my own opinion aside, my own opinion is no, but the data, the current data, and I'm a big nerd because I read all this stuff all the time, with the data would clearly point to in the negative there. So people would often say that they would leave to get married and blah, blah, Okay, maybe years past, maybe in the years immediately following the council in the 70s, early 80s. We just don't see that anymore. Okay. Yes, guys leave the priesthood, but they don't do it for that reason, for the most part.
That's good to know.
The bigger issue is that they don't feel connected always with their ordinary or their bishop. So they get discouraged with the diocese. And so that is a far bigger issue the data would point to. And so my own humble opinion, nobody asked my opinion, but we need to shore up those relationships, which every bishop and every priest, most of them would agree with that totally. Yeah.
Well, thank you for touching on the touchy subjects.
Yeah. Yes.
We love it.
Yes.
We love it. We love it.
We're digging into something that, and I know that's not always easy for people to dig into, like you're talking about with parents, right? And so it's the Holy Spirit will guide us. We hopefully can do this together. But at the same time, I think it's they say in Spanish, vale la pena.
Vale la pena.
It's worth it. It's worth the price.
Well, and it's one of those things. Going back to the communal, like the meals, going back to the beginning. I was gonna say one of my top meals was actually in Italy with my family there. 13-course meal. They made it. It was this big reunion. It was just amazing. And in their home where my great grandparents lived, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think those experiences are times where we need to remember that this is the community of saints on earth. This is what heaven's going to be like. Just as celibacy points us to that heavenly reward and what life in heaven is going to be like. I think when we sit down at some meals and you just don't want it to end, that's because you're experiencing a taste of heaven.
Yeah, you have these moments where your brain, your heart telling you, drink in this moment.
Yes. Yeah.
And yes, that's so true. And remember, the very first thing that came out of Jesus's mouth was, after the resurrection, was, peace be with you. Do you have anything to eat?
I know.
And I'm like, who can blame him, right?
Love that.
To that point, don't forget to put soul in your food and give food to your soul. God bless you. He was probably very hungry. And then they gave him it's typical. It's like a frat house. They have cold fish. And he's like, ramen noodles. No Pop-Tarts.